Hey guys, welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. What we're going to be doing is re-airing an episode of the Mark Edge show. Mark Edge is a libertarian sovereignty guy. He has a great show that you guys need to check out. And in case you missed the conversation, we thought we'd re-air the segment that we did together. We talk a lot about Mexico residency and do a deep dive on that, and flag theory concepts in general. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation between Mark Edge and My Latin Life.
All right, it's another edition of the Mark Edge Show, and I'm Mark Edge. We are here today with Vance from My Latin Life. I just want to tell you this is broadcast on the Free Talk Live network in conjunction with Sal and Mark, brought to you by Salt Lending. So, Vance, I brought you on the show because I have been on your newsletter for years, and we met not too long ago. And I think you've got a key that I think is part of the toolbox that people should have for freedom. And that key is Mexican residency. My thought is that Americans ought to look into this. They ought to consider whether they should have it. How hard is it to get Mexican residency for an American?
It's easy if you qualify. So most people need to qualify financially. Happy to go into what the requirements are. There's a couple different ways. There's also, if you have family ties to Mexico, a lot of Mexican Americans, we help get citizenship by descent. But yeah, Mexico residency is I think a no-brainer for pretty much every American. I have, Mexico permanent residency myself. I believe you do too. So happy to chat about it.
Let's talk about the types of residency, because funny thing about Mexican citizenship is it may be better to have Mexican residency than Mexican citizenship. Can you go into that?
Ooh, Mexico residency versus citizenship, pros and cons of each. This is a pretty nuanced, technical discussion of citizenship for like real citizenship nerds. But I'll give you just some high level points first. One thing people say specifically regarding Mexico is that they don't want to get Mexican citizenship because they would be giving up consular assistance from their home country in Mexico, typically the US. And in theory, you can no longer get as much US consular assistance, I don't know, you won't get like medevac or something compared to if you're a Mexican citizen. So that's one of the big ones. I could name more.
What about taxes? I hear that the Mexican tax system's a right mess.
Uh, well, what countries isn't? You know, Mexico's tax system is actually generous in some senses. They're generous in terms of who they allow to be a non-tax resident. So it's actually not super easy or automatic to become a Mexican tax resident. So it is quote unquote avoidable. Just because it's a country that's historically open to retirees and snowbirds and immigration. So they're kind of chill with snowbirds and expats. That's something to note.
Yeah, most of the people that I know that live in Mexico don't pay any tax. They have, of course, taxes in the United States that they have to worry about. In some cases, Canada, they have to, I don't know much about Canadian citizenship and the residency requirements and how all that works. But I've just been told that maybe the temporary residency is the sweet spot when it comes to Mexico. But let's talk about permanent residency in Mexico. I know the one drawback, at least one of the drawbacks, is that if you have a car that you drive from the United States and you're a permanent resident in Mexico, it must be licensed in Mexico.
Yeah, this is something we've talked about in articles before. I guess to back it up real quick, just so it's super clear for everyone, there's kind of like 3 or 4 statuses on the journey from tourist to citizen in Mexico, right? So lowest level would be a tourist visa. That's what, if you've been to Mexico before, you enter on a tourist visa. And then the next step would be temporary residency, which is a real legal residency in Mexico. Then there's permanent residency, which is a different status of residency, which comes with its own differences compared to temporary residency. And then the next step is citizenship. So temporary residency, you'll kind of eventually need to convert it to permanent. You can't really stick on temporary forever. But then the real question is permanent residency to citizenship. Permanent residency can be maintained with low physical presence as like a plan B without even living there. Citizenship, however, if you want to work towards Mexican citizenship and you have no Mexican ancestry, then there is a physical presence requirement, which is currently essentially 9 months a year for 2 years. So you basically have to move to Mexico for 2 years to get citizenship as part of the process. But hopefully that clears up a little bit, kind of like the different stages or the different legal statuses. And happy to go into more detail.
No, I think that really covers it. I just want people to get a general idea of what it is. So in order to get a temporary residency, which can be 5 years, it's a long time, what does one need to have as far as in a bank account?
Okay, so to obtain temporary residency in Mexico via what we generally call like an independent means visa, where you're showing money in the bank or whatever, there's two different ways to qualify. The first way is via income, where you need to show about $4,500 a month in after-tax income, or essentially money hitting your bank account every month for 6+ months. So 6 months of statements, 4,500 plus for a single applicant. The second way of qualifying, you only need to meet one of these two tests, by the way. The second way is via savings. You need to show about $80,000 in savings. This can be 401ks and IRA and TFSA and different sort of savings accounts and, like retirement stock accounts. It does not include home equity. It does not include crypto, but it includes kind of like stocks, bonds, savings in the bank. So 80K savings. Generally, it's easier to do it with savings than income. With income, they kind of want more documentation around the income, employment contracts. It differs quite a bit by consulate. So if you're applying in the US, Canada, etc., every consulate has slightly different requirements. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, those are the two ways to qualify.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, I guess we're calling them crypto bros now. A lot of people who have some cryptocurrency that have asked me, well, can I show my cryptocurrency account? And you can't. You have to show statements from some kind of savings and, in US dollars, I guess it's about $80,000. So I guess the nice thing is that when you're showing the statements, they can't call and check, right? Like, it's your statement, you're showing it. Your bank isn't going to give the information that's there for whatever reason. So you pick the account that you want and you show them. What about if you had, say, retirement in 2 or 3 different accounts?
Yeah, you can combine accounts.
Okay. I was curious about that. The reason I recommend Mexican residency, and I do recommend Mexican residency, is fundamentally this. Prior to 2020, I kind of thought this whole vertical was nonsense. As an American citizen, I can travel pretty much anywhere I want to go. In Mexico, it used to be, at least, you could stay 180 days and, you step out for a few days, you fly home, you see mom in upstate New York or wherever it is you're going to go, down in Clearwater, Florida, or wherever you go, and then you fly back and you get another 180 days. What's the big deal? But then the United States government and the entire world shut down. And when they shut down habeas corpus. What this country was founded on is that you would have your day in court before some kind of legal action was taken against you. And here, your right to travel, in my opinion, the fundamental right of freedom. If you don't have the right to leave, you don't have any rights. If you can't just say, you know what, I've had enough of whatever your BS is here in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and I'm going to move to, Arizona, you're not free. If you can't leave, you're not free. And there for a little while, we couldn't leave. Now, at the time, I was living on the U.S. territory of the U.S. Marianas on the island of Saipan. The governor there said, we're shutting the island down. And they did. There were no flights in, and there were no flights out. It was like a giant 50,000 person version of Alcatraz. And they still kept getting shipments and that kind of thing. So, I mean, the nicest Alcatraz. But it was scary stuff. I flew out on the second to last plane that left the island, I think, third to last, something like that. And it was fine. Everything was fine. I don't like the idea that I can't leave. And there's 2 countries you can drive to from the United States. And one of them is a socialist cesspool. And the other one, from what I can tell, everybody who lives there that I know is like, this is the freest place I've ever lived. Now, I'm not saying Americans pick up and move to Mexico, but I am saying that you really do want to have options. And this is the easiest way I know to have options in this whole Plan B vertical. Let's call it that, right? Like there's somebody out there who's trying to sell you a Portuguese residency. Fine. If you like Portugal, I'm not saying it's bad. But there's somebody out there who wants to sell you for $2 million a citizenship in Malta and any variety of things that are in this vertical. This Mexican residency is the easy win for an American as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And you mentioned the term Plan B. So maybe that's kind of worth defining in a very actionable way. What my clients are often looking for, and what I was looking for, was Plan B residencies where you can maintain legal residency without it being your primary home. So, for example, Canadian residency, if you could do 1 day a year and maintain Canadian residency, maybe it would actually be a good Plan B residency, but that's not the case. You need to, spend more than 6 months a year there to keep that residency active, which turns you into a tax resident and so forth. With Mexico, it can be 1 day a year. Once you have permanent residency, it's actually, there's 0 days a year. You just renew the card every 10 years or something. Mexico permanent residency is one of the only residencies in the world that has no physical presence requirements to maintain. And you basically just get it for life. And we've looked into this. If anyone knows another one, let us know. But it's basically the only permanent residency that you can maintain with 0 physical presence. For example, Panama, you have to visit 1 day every 2 years. Paraguay, Uruguay, you have to visit 1 day every 3 years to keep your card active. So Mexico is actually a really good product.
Yeah, I find it to be very special in this area. Also, one thing that never gets mentioned is spouses and children. How's it work if you get it and then sort of passing it on? What if you're married and you want to get it? Is it a good idea to, for the 2 of you to go together? How does this work?
Yeah, exactly. This is called family reunification. We typically call it, or you could call it a marriage visa, but it's super easy to do and it's a no-brainer. We have a lot of families like this. So we see it a couple different ways. Sometimes we have a family where one spouse is Mexican, and then they give their partner Mexican residency via a marriage visa, right? So if you marry a Mexican chick, you're living in the US, you can get Mexico residency by marriage and just like maintain it as a Plan B residency, right? You could get that for the kids too. The kids could probably get Mexican citizenship. Another way we see this is sometimes, so you have to show higher income as a family. So a family of 4 would have to show roughly double the numbers that we talked about because it's about 30% per dependent more, right? So if you and your spouse are applying with savings, you need not just 80K, you need like 110K because you need 30% more. So if it's a family of 4, it's like 160K that you would need to show. So maybe some people don't hit that requirement. So what you might do is you might apply solo or apply maybe like just you and your spouse and then add the kids later, or just apply solo and then add the wife later. Also just test it out because we have a lot of people that even if you're married or in a family, like just the father or just one family member will do it first and kind of break the ice, and then the rest of the family can be added later.
And what about adult children if they're over 18?
That's a tricky one. If they're still in school up to age 25 type of thing, you might be able to argue they're still dependent. Otherwise, they would need to sort of apply on their own merit, like having their own independent means. So that's why it's really good to sign up your kids before they're 18.
So this process can be done without a concierge to help you through the process. So I hear. Why wouldn't you just want to go through the process by yourself?
There's a lot to learn. You basically have to like learn this whole like industry, and you go down a pretty deep rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, we have a service that at the time of this recording, we only charge $1,400 per person for the Mexico residency, so pretty reasonable.
Is that start to finish?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I have talked to people who've gone through this process, and I will call that inexpensive for Americans. And I would call it shockingly, it makes me feel bad. It's so inexpensive. It's a really good deal. Basically, what I found is if you don't use some kind of service, you're never going to get an appointment. These offices, they make the DMV look efficient. You go into these offices and you're going to sit and sit and sit and sit, and God knows when they're going to deal with you. And these bureaucrats, they have no understanding. They're just, like, you're not going anywhere. So I recommend using a service. I think you have to be successful. And I find that $1,400, is that what you said? Just to make sure that's
Yeah,
what you said.
yeah, well, $1,400. We're definitely underpricing it, but that's what it is.
$1,400 is a shocking bargain in this area. And then just at the lowest level, it's fun to show the card off, right? You can say, oh, look at this.
Yeah, I have it in my drawer right here.
The rest of you are trapped here. I got this. And I think that's a fun little party trick that I've seen done, and I think it's very nice. How do my listeners get a hold of you? Is there some kind of coupon code or something like that?
Yeah, Mark Edge, all caps, will be the coupon code.
Thanks.
But you can find us on mylatinlife.com. We're on Twitter, YouTube, everything, My Latin Life. But you can go directly to the website. You can check out all the different services and a lot of resources and helpful information.
And I don't want to give people the impression that My Latin Life just does Mexican residency. My Latin Life can help you with every aspect of wanting to be anywhere. And lots of people are wanting Colombia these days. Paraguay is a huge staple. I've talked to many libertarians that are interested in Argentina right now. I would presume you can actually help people with Portugal and Spain and those sorts of places too. And, whatever it is that they might be interested in. I know Dominican Republic is getting hot right now too. I don't know everything about this sphere. And it really just comes down to where you want to be. If you're relocating, this is a great service to get started with. Can you tell me what's most interesting right now to your clients?
That's a good one. I think the most popular have traditionally been Mexico, Panama, and Paraguay. Those have kind of been like the big three in Latin America for us. I'm most excited about Central America and the Southern Cone, if I had to give you like two regions I'm excited about. But
What's the Southern Cone? Is that
Southern Cone is Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay,
okay?
Southern Brazil. The only region where there's no nuclear warheads pointed at you.
I wasn't going to go there because it makes me sound like a kook, but I am 100%. Like, Central America, I think you could make an argument there's not much going on as far as nuclear weapons being pointed at you. But definitely the Southern Cone, if that's what we're going to call it, this area is just as peaceful as it could be. Unless Argentina decides to kick off against the Falklands again, which seems unlikely. There's just nothing going on. And frankly, Great Britain can't defend the Falklands like it used to be able to. They don't even have an aircraft carrier that's in service right now. So anyway, I think for those that are looking to relocate, that Uruguay is very interesting. And personally, I love Buenos Aires. It's just a wonderful city. And surprisingly, the air seems so clean there. I haven't spent much time in Chile to be able to speak of it, but those that I've met who have think that it's very nice. And I guess that everybody should probably visit that big waterfall that's down there.
Iguazu.
Iguazu, yeah. I had forgotten it there. That's in Paraguay.
Yeah, the triple frontier. That's a must do.
It's pretty cool.
To answer your question, we try to cover every country in Latin America because there's really a lot that the region has in common. Obviously, the common language and everything, and some jurisdictions rise and fall, and it just makes it fun to compare and contrast all the different programs. And people can do multiple programs. Like a lot of our clients start with Mexico residency, Mark, and then they catch the bug, and then they go, oh, I want another one. I want one in a territorial tax country. I want one in Mercosur. And they start thinking about their passport and residency portfolio.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and each person has to decide for themselves what to do. And, if you want to collect passports and residencies, by all means. But I think that there are definitely some that you can really, live a better life with. And I think that that's something that one should deeply consider. So thanks for coming on. I do want to tell people that, if you're thinking about relocating, the very best thing to have is some way to make money remotely. And, some people do it on YouTube. Some people work with their employer. Whatever it is, if you can take a pay cut of 50%, doesn't that sound crazy? Taking a pay cut of 50%, but you live in a place where it doesn't cost you $10,000 a month to live and it only costs you $2,000 a month to live, you've actually got an increase of 2.5 times the value of your paycheck. Mm-hmm. And that's something to strongly consider as far as living more free. Because I'm not going to say money is freedom, but I am going to say that savings and freedom are closely aligned. Because you get to do what you want if you have a little money in the bank, and that's a big thing. Also, if you have some crypto and you want to access the value within that crypto, tax-free. If you don't want to sell right now because you think we're getting into, crypto summer or whenever it goes up, now's a good time to hold, then get a hold of me, salt@markedge.org, SALT, salt@markedge.org, and maybe we can access some crypto and get you that savings that we were talking about here. One more time, Vance, where can people get a hold of you?
mylatinlife.com.
mylatinlife.com?
Sometimes I say it too fast. I hope you like the alliteration. I like alliterations. mylatinlife.com.
Well, honestly, the reason I picked you out, you weren't the one that I've done business with in order to get, my Mexican residency. But I think that you run the most professional operation and you have a great logo. You got a great name. It really sticks in people's heads. And everything I've been able to see, you operate above board. There's some shysters in this realm, and I wouldn't turn any of my listeners over to them. So thank you for coming on, Vance. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
mylatinlife.com, coupon code MarkEdge, all caps.
Yes. One word, all caps, Mark Edge.